Today's session on shared cybersecurity challenges is being organized in partnership with the United Service Institution of India and Institute for National Security Strategy in Republic of Korea. In the past 2 weeks, we've been a part of some very interesting and interactive sessions, as you've just seen, constituting experts and live participants from India and Republic of Korea who have shared their perspectives on political, economic, social, cultural, security, and strategic issues, along with emerging areas like the renewable energy, artificial intelligence policies, startups, unicorns, and decacons. And today, we are amidst you to discuss about shared cybersecurity challenges for both India and Republic of Korea. To discuss this very topical theme of critical importance for both countries, we have a very distinguished panel from India and Korea with us today in this panel. To begin with, Dr. Il Sok Oh, who is a research fellow at Center for Cybersecurity Studies, INSS. We also have from India, Colonel Sanjeev Relia, who is a visiting fellow at USI New Delhi. Mr. Hyun Dong Lee is also joining us from INSS, who would be taking up the discussion later. And the session would be moderated by General P.K. Goswami, who is the Deputy Director at USI. And to give the concluding remarks, we have our defense attaché, Colonel Rakesh Kumar Mishra from Embassy of India in Seoul, along with the presence of Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, Ambassador of India to Republic of Korea. Friends, before we begin the session formally, let me call upon Ambassador of India, Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, for her remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sonu. Dear friends, it is such a pleasure to be with you today as we focus on a area which I think for countries like India and ROK, which are special strategic partners and which share similar perspectives on the burning issues of today, is really central to what we are seeking to do in our partnership, and that is the area of cybersecurity. How do we handle the challenges to our security through the means of cyberspace? There are new with every passing day, there are new emerging problems that we face, not only at the personal and individual level, but also at a far more grave institutional and governmental level. I think both India and the Republic of Korea have been seeing and have been braving attacks from beyond our borders, with the capacity of non-state actors in particular to challenge our very basic security needs. This has really become as I said, the burning issue of the day. At a time when the entire world is so dependent on technology and ICT for just about everything that we do, again, from the home unit to the institutional unit to the realm of government, this has really become the area where we have to strengthen and protect ourselves to the utmost. So I'm really very glad that both the USI and the INSS have agreed to partner with us in our conversation today. And I hope very much that we will find at the end of this session that we have some practical and tangible suggestions on issues that we can take up at the government-to-government level, so that we are able to leverage our partnership to create a safer space both in Korea and in India and beyond. So I wish you all excellent deliberations and look forward to a lot of fruitful outcome from this. Thank you so much. Dhanyavad. Kamsamnida.
Thank you, ma'am, for your remarks and also flagging some of the very important issues. I'm sure these would be taken up by our panelists during the course of the discussion. Without much ado, may I now request General P.K. Goswami, the Deputy Director from USI New Delhi, to preside over the session and carry forward the proceedings. General Goswami, floor is all yours.
Excellencies, dignitaries, esteemed speakers, my friends from the Republic of Korea and other countries. Namaste from India. My deep gratitude to Ambassador Shri Priya Ranganathan and Embassy of India, Seoul, for inviting United Service Institution of India, New Delhi, to partner second online academic workshop on facets of India-Republic of Korea partnership. As you may be aware that the USI is the oldest think tank of India. It was established in 1870. I'm also thankful for giving me an opportunity to actively participate in today's deliberation on shared cybersecurity challenges. Speakers will deliberate on the cybersecurity challenges faced by the respective country and also suggest way forward for areas of cooperation and capacity building. Today, we are living in an interconnected world where any denial of access to the sharing of information impedes our day-to-day activity. We are now totally dependent on technology and gadgets and cannot survive without it. For example, how many of us remember the contact numbers and email IDs of our dear ones? Because today everything is in our mobile. Because this is what is our daily means of communication. How many of us can do serious research without assistance of Mr. Google or referring to the YouTube or podcast? And how long we can survive without internet or Wi-Fi connectivity? It is agreed that the prevailing technology enables us to save a life in the remotest location in the world, to contact or conduct the life-saving surgery by the robots, remote repair in the space, and pinpoint identification and engagements of targets thousands of miles away. On the flip side, we are now slave to the digital technology and associated gadgets. With the global connectivity and uses of cloud services, world is becoming increasingly reliant on this technology with no sign of slowing down. Our dependence on this is to an extent that has become a lucrative source of exploitation by our opponent, wherein he can deny us its use while he continues to use the same for himself. Today, individuals as well as organizations, whether small or the large corporates, rely on the computer systems. Coupled with this is the rise in the cloud services, poor cloud service security, smartphones, and Internet of Things. And we have a myriad of cybersecurity threats that did exist a few years back. So both inherent and the residual risk are increasing. And consequently, technology has changed how we do the business today. Use of offensive cyber operations by the national states directly against another or by co-opting the cyber criminals has blurred the line between the spies and the non-state actors. They are often the forerunner of the criminal financial gain, destruction, and disruptive operations. Progressively, we see non-state actors, including commercial entities, developing capabilities that are solely held by the few actors earlier. Thus, cyber threat landscape has progressively changing from hacking to cybercrime to cyber espionage and now prevailing uncleared cyber war. Cyber attacks in the various forms have become a global concern. The new class of cyber weapons are not only well within the reach of countries, a terrorist group, non-state actor, and even are also available off the shelf. Thus, critical information infrastructure of a nation can be targeted through the cyberspace, rendering it unusable. Protection of these infrastructure from cyber attack is essential. I'm sure the speakers today will dwell upon this aspect in greater details. Without a robust cybersecurity program, no nation or organization can defend itself against data breach campaign by the cyber criminals. Today, we cannot solely rely on the routine cybersecurity solutions like antivirus software or firewalls. Cyber criminals are getting smarter and their tactics are becoming more resilient to the conventional cyber defense. This being a relatively new area of warfare, the rules of engagements are still emerging and ambiguous. India being ranked third in the terms of the highest number of internet users in the world after USA and China, its transition to the Digital India program comes with a set of vulnerabilities of the cyberspace. Digital India program aims to transform India into a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy and provide the much needed thrust to the overall growth. Thus, cybersecurity becomes very significant in protecting our digital space from attack, damage, misuse, and economic espionage. National Cybersecurity Strategy 2020 is being revised to holistically cover the entire ecosystem of cyberspace in India. There will be about 80 deliverables coming out of this strategy and expected to serve as a guidelines to tackle every aspect, including cyber audit, building new indigenous capabilities, and data as a national source or governance. On the other hand, the Republic of Korea's technological and digital transformation to be world's most innovative economy is an impressive story. It is a result of government's ambitious speed to transform by the three major steps it has taken, that is the advanced education system, cultural characteristics, and the government's vision to information and communication technology. This has further intensified with the arrival of the fourth industrial revolution and its expansion to the machine learning and artificial intelligence. The fourth industrial revolution is viewed as a new driving force for the innovative growth in Republic of Korea, one of the world's most innovative economies. Thus, enhancing cybersecurity is a prerequisite for the success of fourth industrial revolution. That's why Korea is investing, including in the International Cyber Partnership, to promote better cybersecurity policies and practices at home, while offering the distinctively Korean contribution to the other countries. Cyber attacks suspected of originating from the North Korea has become increasingly sophisticated to achieve its political goal and showing a sense of vulnerability in the Korean society in particular. Thus, Korea has developed better and more comprehensive cybersecurity policies aimed at ensuring the capabilities to prepare, respond, and recover in both public and private sectors. After the cyber attacks such as distributed denial of services in 2009, attack on broadcast systems in 2013, and ransom attack on Korea hydro and nuclear power in 2014, the Korean government responded by extensively evaluating the achievements, response systems, institutions, and the capabilities of the previous policies before announcing new comprehensive measures in 2015 in the form of nation's first national cyber security strategy in line with the national security strategies to integrate all capabilities against the cyber threat. With this background on the cyber security, let's hear our experts on the subject. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker today is Dr. Seok Oh, a research fellow at Center for Cyber Security Studies, Institute of National Security Strategies, Republic of Korea. His area of research includes cybersecurity laws and energy security laws and policies. He is also an adjunct professor at the Cybersecurity Training and Institution Center and a senior researcher at the Institute of Law Studies at Korea University. He has published several books and research papers. So now over to Dr. Seok Oh.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, and it is my great honor to be invited to this meaningful event. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to Dr. Sono Trivedi and Ambassador Siripriya Langanathan and moderator Dear Goswami. Thank you so much for your kind invitation. In 2019, I attended IDS conference and I authored this book together with the expert. And I believe that India is very dear to my heart because I learned a lot from my Indian colleagues. So it is my great honor to have a discussion with USI about cybersecurity challenges. Coming from the India in 2019 September, I authored the report on the cyber challenges and security issues of India and Korea. And I talked about the cyber security issues between India and actually we are attacked a lot by China. So I believe that we have common issues in the field of cybersecurity because we are facing the similar challenge. So this is a national issue for both countries. So through my discussion, I'm going to talk about the cybersecurity strategies of Korea, policies and regulation of Korea as of today. And then I'm going to talk about the areas for cooperation with India. So I'm going to first talk about the cyber attacks in the time of the pandemic, and then I'm going to talk about the recent international cybersecurity issues, then about North Korean cyber attacks and the current status of Korea and recommendation for improvement. As you all may be aware, due to the outbreak of COVID-19, we are moving into the untech society. So many people are working at home and get education remotely and get also medical services at home, which means that we are doing a lot more in cyberspace. And due to such extension and expansion, we are seeing more threat in security. In 2020, cybersecurity was chosen as one of the 4 risks by World Economic Forum in 2020. Also, Harvard Belfer Center released the Cyber Power Index in 2020. Korea ranked 15 and US ranked number 1. And according to the 2021 ITU report on the Global Cybersecurity Index, Korea ranked 4th. Global Cybersecurity Index outcome tells that actually this is about the legal structure of the cybersecurity, and Korea ranked 4th, which means that Korea has a good legal system for cybersecurity protection. So due to untech economy, there has been many trials of and attempts of cyber attacks. For example, this was case of the UK. The cyber attack happened to steal some COVID-19 subsidies. Also, China, Russia, North Korea attempted multiple cyber attacks, especially in order to steal the COVID-19 vaccine-related technologies, also against medical institutions to steal critical information. Also, by using the fear of COVID-19, they spread fake news to take control of the public opinion, which means that they negatively impacted the COVID-19 control effort of the government, causing social and economic damage. And it also caused social discrimination against a certain ethnic. Also, due to the growth of the cyberspace, cryptocurrency emerged as a powerful currency, and terrorists and organized crimes took the advantage of the cyber currency for their own good. So as such, the world is suffering a lot from cyber attacks. From this January, due to the SolarWinds attack, many companies and organizations in the US were attacked, causing huge damage as well as information leakage. Also, Microsoft's email system has been attacked, and many critical technology of Microsoft were stolen. And also, another attack was made against Colonial organization, which causing the disruption in the supply of energy in eastern part of the US. Also, Kaseya experienced another cyber attack, causing huge damage. As such, after the outbreak of COVID-19, due to we are doing more and more online activities, and because of that, we are exposing to the higher threat of cybersecurity, meaning that cybersecurity is more critical than ever.
As I've mentioned, there has been a lot of cyber attacks, and especially the biggest important issue would be the competition surrounding 5G technology. And there is a lot of conflict between the US and China over this. And it seems like the US is winning at this point in time. And there is increasing level of conflicts between US and Russia and China in the cyberspace. And the United States regarding Russia and China has imposed cyber sanctions, and EU has joined the United States. And each country is raising their cyber military power, building on their military capability in the safe cyberspace. North Korean cyber attacks in order to avoid the US and UN sanctions and to resolve its shortage of foreign currency, is especially attacking more financial institutions. So let us delve into North Korean cyber attacks. This table shows us the nuclear missile tests and its relationship with cyber attacks. In the first nuclear missile test, there was no cyber attack, but in the second missile test in 2009, 2 months later, there was a DDoS attack launched, targeting many media organizations and government organizations in South Korea. And after the third North Korean nuclear missile test in 2013, there was a cyber attack that ensued March and June of 2013, targeting the financial institutions and broadcasting systems in South Korea. The fourth nuclear test took place in January 2016, and in January and February of the same year, there was a smartphone-based hacking attack against Blue House, feigning itself as the Blue House, and foreign affairs and security organizations were attacked. In the fifth nuclear missile test that took place in September 2016, in the same month of the same year, there was a hacking against the Cyber Security Command Center, and a large number of military-related organizations were attacked, leading to the data breach of sensitive information. In the sixth nuclear missile test in 2017, September, there was a vulnerability attack using the vulnerability of Daum's email system, and North Korean attackers were looking for financial revenue through such attacks. Under such circumstances, it's obvious that North Korea is carrying out nuclear missile tests and cyber attacks almost simultaneously or right after one another to cause high level of uncertainties in the Korean society and also steal sensitive information from the South Korean institutions. Such cyber attacks launched by North Koreans were mainly focused on were designed to avoid the sanctions imposed by the United States and UN. After there has been severe sanctions from the international community, North Korea changed its pattern of cyber attacks, now focusing more on financial institutions to gain financial gains. So these days, we are seeing a lot of attacks on financial institutions, and North Koreans are definitely seeking financial gains through those cyber attacks. And it seems like North Korea is trying to find a way around international sanctions to gain more foreign currency, to resolve its shortage of foreign currency. And these days, North Koreans are also resorting to ransomware. And through the WannaCry ransom attack, it seems like North Korea has gained a lot of financial profits, and they are also emphasizing internet gambling as a source of attack. South Korean police has tracked the source of this attack and found out that the source of the attacks were former North Korean hackers. And in order to gain financial gains, North Korea also attacked cryptocurrency trading markets. And after the Pyeongchang Olympics, there was a reconciliation between the two Koreas. But since then, North Korea has attacked cyber attacks against foreign affairs or foreign diplomacy-related institutions. This is a picture of the cover, and it was fake North Korean human rights white paper, and North Korea used this as a source of attack. And in order to gain most advanced technologies, North Korea has made several cyber attacks, and especially in order to steal information about SLBM submarine technology, they have launched a hacking attack. And also they have hacked the Korean vaccine developing companies like Shimpung Pharmaceutical Company to gain vaccine-related information. Next, let me talk about cyber security governance structure of South Korea. As you can see, there are three main areas in our governance structure. First, national defense. Second, private sector and private sector. And each related entities, there are different entities responsible for each area. In the public sector, the central administration organizations are responsible for this area, but there is the National Cybersecurity Center that is responsible for all the three areas, and this security area reports to the related government organization, and President takes the final responsibility for this governance structure. And regarding this National Cyber Security Guidelines, such organization and governance structure has been developed, and in order to enhance cooperation with the private sector, we are planning to legislate the cybersecurity basic law, but it's still pending in the National Assembly. These are related government authorities related to cybersecurity. First, there is National Cybersecurity Center, NIS, and there's the Ministry of Science and ICT, and Korea Communications Commission, and Ministry of Interior and Safety, and Financial Service Commission, Personal Information Protection. These are government authorities that are one way or another related to cybersecurity of Republic of Korea. These are laws and regulations on cybersecurity. First, there is the National Intelligence Services Act, and it allows NIS to be responsible for cybersecurity issues, and there is the Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Act, designed to counteract any hacking or threat against our critical information infrastructure. And then there's the National Cybersecurity Management Regulation, and there's the Act on Promotion of Information and Communication Network Utilization and Information Protection. This is related to cybersecurity for the private sector. And there is the Cybersecurity Industry Enhancement Law and Personal Information Protection Law as well. Recently, National Intelligence Services Act has been revised, and NIS now has the full authority on cybersecurity issue. And thanks to the government, the presidential order, cybersecurity activities can be governed by the NIS Act. And NIS Act, more details have been added to the presidential order, but the cyber attack still continues, and there has been an increasing number of attacks on vaccine-related companies, and also attack on medical R&D institutions and Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
최근에 우리 한국 사회에서는 개인정보
Also recently, Korean society saw the revision of Personal Information Protection Act to elevate the Personal Information Protection Committee to the ministerial level and make it independent for the safer protection of personal information. Also recently, Korea had a summit talk with the US to enhance the cooperation in the field of cybersecurity. Especially, they created a working group to jointly respond to ransomware attacks. So this is current situation of Korea, and what kind of role Korea need to play in this new field of cybersecurity. My recommendation is that actually when it comes to cybersecurity means that you reduce the vulnerability and minimize the potential of attack to safeguard critical infrastructure. So what matters the most is to detect, control, and reduce vulnerability and enhance resilience from attack. Also, Cybersecurity Framework Act needs to be enacted. So like I said before, Korea, not just Korea, but all the country realize the importance of the public-private cooperation. So the role of private sector is critical in order to have greater, stronger public and private cooperation. Basic Framework Act need to be enacted, but this bill has not been passed at the National Assembly yet. Also, international cooperation is very critical for cyber attack. Especially cooperation with India is critical part of it because India is the member country of Quad, and we also share the same value of democracy. Especially Pakistan and China attacked India multiple times, and given that India, likewise Korea, has been exposed to cyber attack threats. Nonetheless, the infrastructure quality of India is outstanding, so I believe that Korea and India is a good partner to each other. Korea experienced multiple cyber attacks from North Korea against financial institutions, and in this field of cyber attack on financial institutions, we need much progressive cooperation. Also, we need to share information regarding technique of cyber attacks and the details of it. Also, we need to come up with an international norm. And while creating such a norm, China and US are competing each other. And this is right time for India and Korea to propose the standard norm as a middle power country so that we can contribute to the creation of a high quality norm. Also, we need to jointly participate in the research and development programs for cybersecurity. Also, Korea and India experienced multiple cyber attacks so far, especially in case of Korea. We experienced attack against Korean hydro and power, as well as against critical core infrastructure. That's why we created a Telecommunication and Communication Infrastructure Act. So we have years of experience in this kind of field. So I think we can share that kind of information with India. This concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oh, for your very articulated presentation and talk. We will have some clarification in the question answer session. Our second speaker for today is Colonel Sanjeev Ralia. He is a visiting fellow at the United Service Institution of India, New Delhi, and an Indian Army veteran and cyber security expert. He served for 32 years with the Corps of Signals in the Indian Army and gained expertise in the field of telecommunication, establishments of voice and data network, and cybersecurity. He researched for 2 years at the USI of India on the aspects of cyber warfare and authored a book titled Cyber Warfare, Its Implications on the National Security Strategy. Since 2019, he has been working as a consultant or an advisor with 3 different Indian companies on issues pertaining to cybersecurity and rendering useful advice on the implementation of cybersecurity projects and training on cybersecurity awareness. So over to Colonel Sanjeev Ralia.
Thank you, sir. I hope I can be heard. At the outset, I would like to thank the Indian Embassy at Seoul and the Swami Vivekanand Culture Center at Seoul for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this August gathering, such eminent speakers. It is, I was just mentioning to Dr. O that it is such a small world. He and me participated in the same seminar about 5 years back in India, in New Delhi, when he was invited to speak at IDSA. So great to connect with him again through this media, of course, this time. What I'm going to be talking about today is two very, very distinct aspects. The first is the threat that the Indian critical info infrastructure faces from Chinese cyber attacks. And the second is involvement of North Korea and North Korean non-state actors and criminal groups in committing cybercrime in India. Now, of late, both these things have increased tremendously in the past 2 to 3 years, especially during the pandemic. Like Dr. O said, that every time there is a missile launched by the North Koreans, it is followed by a cyber attack on South Korea. Similarly, every time there has been a border skirmish with China, with India, the border skirmish between India and China, it has invariably been followed by cyber attacks. The recent example was what happened last year, sometime in the winters. The skirmish in the Ladakh sectors, they were followed by successful cyber attacks on the power grid in Mumbai. Though a large number of groups still feel that it was not Chinese cyber attack and it was human failure, but equally large number of groups still feel that it was a successful cyber attack by the Chinese. Now, South Korea and India are very different from each other as far as the cyberspace and the aspects related to cyberspace are concerned. Let me just highlight these. What are these differences? India is a very large country. We have a population of about approximately about 1.3 billion. So, for example, if only about 30% of Indians were using the internet and they use this media for communication and for their business, it works out to roughly about 400 million people. The entire population of South Korea is about 51 million people. So if you compare the kind of people who are using the cyberspace in India today, it's about 8 times the entire population of South Korea. Obviously, when the population base is so large, the amount of attacks that will hit this target will be much larger. So India faces much larger number of cyber attacks than most countries in the world today. Of course, US and China are amongst other 2 countries which are attacked a lot. But India does face a very large number of cyber attacks because we have a large presence in the cyberspace. The second difference is, of course, it starts with the similarity that both South Korea and India are booming e-commerce industries. Today, South Korea is amongst the top 6 e-commerce industries in the world, and India is following very closely. Now, the rate at which the e-commerce industry is growing in India is about 27%. And it is expected that, India, as I've shown in the figures here, that by about 2027, India would be about a $200 billion e-commerce industry. As on date, as in 2017, South Korea was about $42 billion e-commerce industry, and it is expected that by about 2024, it will reach a figure of about 90 billion. So the rate at which money is flowing on the internet, the way business is growing on the internet in India is tremendous. Because of which there is more interest of cyber criminals in this arena, because of which there are large number of cyber crime cases and larger number of cyber attacks happening on the e-commerce industry also. The third and the most important reason, according to me, is that India is amongst the biggest gray markets as far as the IT industry is concerned. We everything that is sold in India is virtually, bought in the gray market. As per statistics that is available with me, it is said that 81% of hardware which is sold in India is sold out of the gray market, and it doesn't come with genuine operating system, genuine firewalls, genuine antivirus softwares, which is the most basic element for securing yourself in the cyberspace. Now, if you are buying something which is, an average Indian will buy something like $700 worth of a laptop, but will not spend that $70, $80, $90 on buying a genuine operating system for it. Obviously, it can be assumed that this hardware is coming with pre-installed malware in it, and this hardware will not be able to withstand any kind of cyber attack. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why most distributed denial service of attacks which are initiated from North Korea are actually happening from Indian soil, because there are a large number of botnets working on these machines which are not using genuine operating systems, which have been taken over by the North Koreans, and they are using them in the DDoS attacks. Now, this figure shows the kind of attacks which are happening from various soils in the world. China is about 26-27% of attacks in India are originated from China. Ukraine and Slovenia, though they appear, but these are attacks which are carried out by Russian hackers. Maybe even the Czech Republic could also be the Russian hackers who are, using the name of Czech Republic to initiate their attacks. So virtually about 50 to 60% of attacks are coming from Russia. And of course, Mexico, and a small percentage of attacks are coming from Pakistan, but they are a very significant number. Now, what is the target of these attacks? Besides cybercrime, they are, why is China and why is Russia carrying out? We will not discuss Russia, of course. So why is China carrying out these cyber attacks? What is the target? The target obviously is the critical information infrastructure of India. Now, what is critical information infrastructure? Just a word about that. So each government spends certain money to create infrastructure which is essential for the public, which is required for the safety of the public, for the growth of the country. This infrastructure varies from country to country. What is critical for South Korea may not be critical for India, and what is critical for India may not be critical for South Korea. So if we go by the spending of the last 3 5-year plans, India works on this 5-year plan policy. We will see that almost about 85-86% of the government spending, which amounted to something like $7.63 trillion US dollars, was on 5 infrastructures, which are namely irrigation, railways, telecommunication, roadways, and electricity. So the focus of the government is to develop these facilities, these infrastructures for the public, which will result in overall growth of the country and, of course, will bring in facilities to the public. Now, amongst this, let us see what constitutes to critical information infrastructure in India. Now, if we take irrigation, for example, irrigation in India still does not depend on any kind of networks or any kind of computer systems to function. Irrigation is still a very, it's working as a very, very, in what it was created a few years back, it still continues to work in a very same manner. So irrigation perhaps will not constitute to critical information infrastructure in India because it does not depend on networks at all. Now, coming to roadways. Roadways is an infrastructure which has in the last few years, maybe 6, 8, 10 years, has started to depend some bit on networks. For example, the toll plazas in India have now been networked. The RFID payment systems in India has become networked, and so on and so forth. So if the roadway infrastructure in India is attacked, yes, it will impact the overall efficiency of the system. However, roadways will still continue to work. Maybe it will become a little less efficient, but it will continue to work when these networks are not there. So roadways perhaps would be partially a critical information infrastructure as far as India is concerned. Now, coming to infrastructure like electricity, banking, telecommunication, these are some of the infrastructures which are completely dependent on networks, and if there are no networks, these infrastructures will collapse, thereby affecting their availability to the public. This is what is critical in India. These are the networks, these are the infrastructures which are critical in India, and hence these are the infrastructures which are most attacked by the Chinese. Let me show you some certain examples. Now, once a critical infrastructure is being attacked, what is the threat to it? The most important threat is espionage. Espionage is the oldest, perhaps, profession in this world. Espionage has been around ever since there were kings and empires. There were reconnaissance and espionage that was happening, and it continues to happen in the cyberspace also. In fact, it is much more prevalent in the cyberspace than it is in the physical world. Now, why is an infrastructure? Why is espionage such an important thing as far as the cyberspace is concerned? Now, India is not really a very big producer of technology, or like the Americans are, where you could be stealing the designs of aircrafts or ships and things like that. Yet Indian infrastructure does experience a big amount of espionage. The reason behind this is that when a successful cyber attack has to be carried out, you need to have every bit of information about that infrastructure. And that is the reason perhaps why China is resorting to a large amount of espionage on various kind of infrastructures of India. There are news reports available wherein they have tried to find out details of the DRDO and the kind of production that goes on there. DRDO is the Defense Research Development Organization. The Indian shipbuilding industry and the shipping industry has suffered a large number of cyber attacks in the recent past, especially after the border skirmishes. And it is said that the Chinese are today hiring startups who are on their behalf, the Chinese government or the Chinese non-state actors on their behalf, they are carrying out this espionage work. Of course, the APT-41 group is one of the most well-known Chinese espionage groups. I shall talk about it a little later. The second threat that the Indian critical info infrastructure faces is subversion. And now, subversion is when you make something work for yourself. There is human subversion that has been reported over centuries. However, there is subversion which happens in the networks also, in IT systems also. Though there haven't been any examples of any Chinese subversions which have come to light in India of late, yet India remains very critical to Chinese activities, which could be the supply chain vulnerabilities, because most of Indian IT industry and most of Indian electronic industry is dependent on imports from China. Almost about 70 to 80% of our requirement of IT equipment comes from China. And there is no way in India that we can find out if the piece of item that I'm holding in my hand, it has a malware, which is a supply chain vulnerability, which is pre-installed in it when it was being made. So such vulnerabilities India faces from not because of any other reason, but because that piece of equipment has been made in China. The third kind of threat that is a very obvious threat is sabotage, wherein you destroy or render a system useless from what it is supposed to do. And there have been enough examples of Chinese cyber attacks causing power breakdown in India, or maybe bringing down certain critical components of telecom industry. It is even said that way back in 2013 that one of the Indian satellites went dead because of a Chinese attack, a cyber attack, though it is there are no, it could not be proved, yes, that it was because of this. Of course, the much talked about Mumbai Blackout, which happened last year, in the winters last year, wherein the Chinese cyber groups were supposed to have broken into the power grid, and it was down for many hours, resulting in big financial losses, because Mumbai happens to be the financial capital of India. And now I spoke about the APT-41. China has a large number of advanced persistent threat groups, starting from 1 to going up to 41. Of course, APT-1 is the very well-known Chinese unit 61398, which has been there for many, many years. It is under the GSD, of course, and a part of the PLA, and it is undertaking big espionage and surveillance operations in the cyberspace. APT-41 is amongst the most active Chinese APT groups and has been known to operating in 14 countries, including India. and it targets high technology sectors, including power, telecommunication, healthcare, and so on and so forth. Now, this was as far as the Chinese interest in the cyberspace and the Chinese interference in the Indian cyberspace was concerned. Now, let me come over to the second aspect, which is the cyber activities from the North Korean groups, cyber groups against India. Now, North Korea, though it is not a very well-developed country, and it primarily is targeting, of course, South Korea for various known reasons, it has shown tremendous amount of interest in India also. It was mentioned earlier that one of the reasons for North Korean groups to be showing interest in South Korea as well as in India is cybercrime, wherein big amount of money is being made by North Korean hacker groups using various malwares and techniques. Now, one of the disturbing aspects as far as the presence of North Korean in India is concerned is their virtual presence, which I had mentioned earlier, that because of our, the population in this country not using genuine operating systems, genuine firewalls, and genuine antivirus softwares, Indian machines have been reported to become botnets, and North Koreans have used these botnets to carry out successful denial of service attacks and distributed denial of service attacks in various parts of the world, including attacks on India. This is a disturbing trend, and it has come to the notice of the government, and I'm sure adequate action will be taken to ensure that such things do not happen from Indian soil. The other aspect is the cybercrime issue, which the North Korean groups are indulging in. One of the biggest cyber crimes that has happened in India in the recent past was the Cosmos Bank heist, which happened in 2018. Let me just share a little details. Something like 94 crore rupees in Indian currency, which is roughly about $12.7 million was taken away from a bank which is located in the city of Pune in India, headquartered in the city of Pune in India. Now, what the hackers did in this was they severed the link between the core banking system and the ATM server, and they introduced a server of their own, which took over the control of the ATM servers, and using stolen debit card and credit card credentials, big amount of money was siphoned off over a period of about 3 to 8 days from various countries, not just in India, but it was taken away from different countries. And it is said that the Lazarus group, based out of North Korea, was involved in this crime. The impact of WannaCry virus, my previous speaker he has already touched upon this aspect. India also suffered the WannaCry malware attack, and there were a large number of computers. Of course, 250,000 was the total number of computers across the world, but there were a large number of computers which were affected by this ransomware. No, WannaCry was in 2017. However, post WannaCry, during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, India has become the global capital of ransomware attacks. And most of these ransomware attacks, though it is not confirmed data, but most of these ransomware attacks are originating from the North Korean soil. It is also said that the malware attack on one of the India's nuclear power plant in September 2019 was carried out by the North Korean group, which was again a very successful attack on the domain controller of the nuclear power plant. So North Korea, though it is not really attacking the critical infrastructure of India, but it is indulging in enough criminal activities, trying to make money out of India, and which is impacting the Indian economy, the e-commerce primarily, and of course the users of this cyberspace in India are facing this aspect. Now, because of this large number of cyber activities that are happening against India from the Chinese and the North Korean soil, There are certain steps that the government of India has taken, and there are certain cooperation areas that can where India and South Korea can cooperate to reduce the impact of these attacks and eventually to stop these attacks. The first is a national cybersecurity strategy. Now, India is in the process of formulating its national cybersecurity strategy. Though there was a cybersecurity policy that was formulated and released in 2013, however, most of it remains non-implemented, and the new cyber security strategy is likely to be released maybe within the next 8 to 10 months. So this is a field where South Korea has already implemented a large number of policies and strategy. And I personally feel that if the government of India and government of South Korea cooperate in this formulation of this policy, the final document of the cyber strategy, which will be released in India, will tend to gain, because of the experience that the South Korean government has gained by bringing out a successful cybersecurity strategy about 4 years back. The second is the organized structure to counter the threat. Now, India still doesn't. India, though there are a large number of organizations in India which are taking care of various cybersecurity aspects, whether it is the protection of critical info infrastructure, whether it is the CERT India, whether it is the Ministry of Electronics and IT. There are a whole lot of organizations, but the unfortunate part is that they are all working in independent silos, and there is very little flow of information from amongst each other, because of which perhaps the threat is, we are not really able to take care of the threat the way we should have. And once again, the government of India and the cybersecurity organization in India can learn from the South Korean the organization, wherein they have such a beautiful structure to take care. Of course, South Korea is a much smaller country, like I had brought earlier. The number of attacks is also much lesser when you compare it to India, of course. But yet, the organization has been successful in countering the threat, and India can perhaps, draw certain lessons from that kind of organization. The third aspect is the public-private partnership for protection of critical info infrastructure. A very unique part of the critical info infrastructure is that most of it today in India is operated and owned by private industry, and hence, there is one kind of program being implemented for the infrastructure being controlled by the government, and another kind of policy which is owned by the private industry. So we need to kind of amalgamate the two, and there has to be more public-private partnership. The government needs to kind of bring the private sector on board as far as the critical info infrastructure is concerned. The government's involvement to fight cybercrime. Now, cybercrime, though it is targeted against individuals and business houses, yet the government has to, play a very big role in as far as fighting the crime is concerned. There is the IT Act in India, but it is time that we amended the IT Act, because it was of 2000 and it was last amended in 2008. And it is time, 13 years is a long time for a bill to be meaningful, especially when the cyberspace is growing at such a tremendous rate. The technology is changing at such a fast rate. There are newer ways of attacks which are coming up every day. So it is time that India now amended this, and maybe we could take a clue from South Korea, how their IT Act and is formulated, and how they are fighting cybercrime. The Personal Data Protection Bill, India still does not have a law for protection of the information of individuals. The bill was tabled in Parliament in 2019 December, and it is hopefully soon it should be a law. Once again, South Korea does have a Personal Data Protection Act, and India could perhaps pick up those good points which the South Korean government has implemented in its country. One big activity that India had undertaken was banning the Chinese app. This was post the border skirmishes which happened in Ladakh. First 59 Chinese applications were banned permanently, and thereafter over 100 more applications were banned, resulting in about ban of about 160 odd applications. The aim of this ban was, one, it impacts the all these applications were collecting data of Indian citizens, which they should not have, and it was being passed back to the companies in China, and perhaps going into the Chinese government, and which should not have happened. And once these applications got banned, their economy got hit because they were making tremendous amount of money by way of advertisements and marketing and such things in India. So this perhaps, even the South Koreans could consider banning Chinese, and if there are any North Korean applications being used by South Korea, it does make a tremendous amount of impact. And the last aspect is creation of a secure cyber ecosystem. It is a far reach, but slowly each nation has to move from where they are today to creating an ecosystem wherein all of us can operate without the fear of being attacked from the cyberspace. That should be the ultimate aim of any strategy, any policy, any law that a country has to bring in. Thank you. I have finished, and if there are any questions, I will take it on at the end of the webinar.
Thank you, Sanjeev, for your very lucid and coherent presentation. We are very well aware that how everyday new situations and challenges are being confronted by all of us in the cybersecurity. These are bound to be exponentially increased in the near future if not addressed by all in time. You have spelled out some likely plans ahead, both at the government level as well as the level of institute. Similarly, the previous speaker has also given out few. We will discuss it during the questions hour. Next, we have Mr. Lee, head of the Center for Cyber Security Studies, Institute of National Security Strategy. Before joining the present appointment, he served as a Director General of Cybersecurity at National Intelligence Services. Presently, he is pursuing PhD program in IT policy and management. So, over to Mr. Lee.
예, 안녕하십니까?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As I was introduced, I'm Mr. Lee Hyung-dong, head of Center for Cybersecurity Studies of INSS. It's a great pleasure to meet you all. First of all, I would like to thank the Embassy of India to Korea and Ambassador Dr. Trivedi, USI, for organizing today's seminar. And I would like to thank all the previous speakers for their wonderful presentation. In May of this year, the colonial pipeline of the United States was infected by ransomware and stopped the operation for 6 days, and the petroleum price skyrocketed as a result. Cyber threats are not confined to cyberspace anymore. It has clear and direct impact on offline business and environment, and it has direct impact on our daily lives. Such cyber threat cannot be stopped by one single nation alone. Therefore, the international community, especially the cooperation between partner countries, would be most effective and critical. So India, which is a long ally of South Korea, we are very fortunate to have this seminar together with our long ally, India. And I hope we can expand the horizon of mutual understanding and bilateral cooperation with India. And of the things that have been said, the Indian speaker has presented the challenges that India faces, and South Korea also has experienced similar challenges and still looking for the best way to cope with such challenges. So when it comes to overall cybersecurity strategy planning and how to design the cyber governance structure and how to promote cooperation with the private sector and how to stop the increasingly sophisticated cyber crime and how to protect personal information, which is becoming more important every day, how to protect and defend the personal information. All these challenges are, big challenges for Korea as well. fortunately, Korea has taken a step to establish the governance structure and the legislative infrastructure, but they are far from being perfect because cyber threats and attacks continue to evolve, and having the most effective defense against the cyber crimes and threats is not just a challenge for South Korea, but for the entire global community. So regarding such challenges, if we can join our efforts for research, I think it will benefit not just Korea and India, but for the entire cybersecurity of the world. And I strongly look forward to such partnership between the two countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Now we come to the last phase of the event, that is the open house discussion. But what I see in the chat box or the question answer, yes, one question has come. This question is addressed to Professor Lee. May I read out, or Dr. Lee, Mr. Lee, you have seen it. I'll just read out. A MOU on cooperation in the field of cybersecurity has been signed between India and Korea in 2014. It is crucial agreement for India and Korea was the second country with whom India signed this agreement after the USA. Can we know what is the current status of cyber affairs dialogue, which was launched with much fanfare in 2014? Also, can we get short your analysis, that is analysis of the India-Korea cybersecurity cooperation, if possible? Over to Mr. Lee.
Regarding the specifics of cyber cooperation with India, well, I don't have all the information now, but when I was working in the field and based on my experience from those days, I can tell you that Korea considers India as a very important partner, and we are very much willing to enhance our cooperation with India. But I'm not well informed about the details of how the MOU has been signed and through which channel it has been signed. And I'm sure there will be more opportunities to produce tangible results from this cooperation.
Other speakers, would they like to add something to it?
Yes, sir. Can I
Yes,
answer? So in 2014, sir, as far as my knowledge goes, India and South Korea had signed 9 agreements on various aspects of technology and cultural exchange. One of them happened to be this, what this question has been asked about. It was a MOU in the cooperation on the field of cybersecurity. This was signed by the then CERT India director, Mr. Gulshan Rai, and his Chinese counterpart. So it was more of a CERT India and CERT Korea kind of a cooperation, wherein the idea was to exchange information and good practices that are happening between the two CERTs. And I'm sure, I really do not know what is the present status of this, but I'm sure a lot of information exchange would have happened, good practices would have exchanged, and the agreement would have met what the aim of the agreement was.
So if I may, I believe that like Mr. O said, Korea has 3 governance pillars. One for public sector, one for private sector, and one for the national defense sector. So I was mainly working on the public sector solely. So I believe that that kind of agreement was made between private institutions. So that's why I have a little knowledge of it. So I think that was concluded between private institutions. I believe that's why I have a little information on it. So that's why I said I have a little information on it. I beg your kind understanding for not speaking much about it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I don't think there is any other question, so I will just sum up the event, this session. In fact, over the last 1 decade or so, cyber space has emerged as a new area of conflict among nations and is growing in intensity with every passing year. In order to address these challenges, the developed nations has brought about transformative changes in the cyber defense organizations. At the same time, other nations are developing cyber weapons and are very happy to possess these asymmetric capabilities against the developed nations. Cyber attack by nation states and supported by independent actors are becoming common. Cyber weapons are posing serious challenges for the public and private sectors alike. Key issues include attribution of cyber actions, unpredictability, potential for collateral damage, dual-use nature of cyber weapons, and its use as a force multiplier for conventional military operation. That is the importance. Thus, cyber capabilities present unique opportunity to provide a wide range of effects. To counter this threat, nations must pronounce the doctrine and acquire counter cyber warfare capabilities, while ensuring protection of her infrastructure and space assets. Concurrently, they must enter into a bilateral, regional, or multilateral agreement to safeguard our interest and play a lead role in formulation of international policies for cyber security. Dependence on the reliable cyber security is here to stay and need efforts to bring down challenges it imposes. India and Republic of Korea have complementary strengths in the digital field. India is powerhouse in terms of development and digital services, while Republic of Korea has the capabilities in terms of design and manufacturing of digital equipment. Thus, we must chart out a way forward to exploit our complementarities so that we can assist each other in the capacity building and keep pace with the development to counter cybersecurity threats. Ladies and gentlemen, today we had very fruitful presentations and discussions by the eminent cybersecurity professionals. They shared their thoughts on the respective countries' cybersecurity threats and challenges and possible areas of cooperation. Both the countries can enhance contribution in this field by sharing experiences and assisting each other. I'm confident that today's event will prove to be critical for further engagement and dialogues on the issue of cybersecurity challenges between India and Republic of Korea and institutes of both the countries. There are several good takeaways from today's event, and we should continue to engage. At the end, I'd like to express my gratitude to Ambassador Shri Priya Ranganathan, Indian Ambassador to Republic of Korea, and the embassy staff for inviting the US side to partner and for me to moderate today's webinar on shared cybersecurity challenges. Of course, I also acknowledge the contribution of all the speakers for valuable contribution. Our best wishes to all the participants for joining us today. Look forward to our opportunity to participate and extend required support from the US side. Till we meet next, stay safe, stay healthy. Jai Hind and Namaste. Now I hand over the stage to Colonel Rakesh Kumar Mishra, Defense Attaché, Embassy of India, Seoul. Over to Colonel Rakesh.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I hope my cyberspace is working properly and I am audible and I am visible also, sir. So thank you, sir. It's indeed an honor to be here and sharing stage with the experts in the field of cyberspace, which knows no boundary. To begin with, I would like to thank Embassy of India for organizing this platform to have the discussion at this level. My deep gratitude for USI and INSS for partnering this event, speakers for sharing their expertise, and lastly, the entire team for selection of this subject as a topic of discussion, because every time we discuss these topical issues, countless avenues open up for follow-up action. And we understand that the journey of any successful mission starts with a discussion, and discussion has no meaning if it is not followed up. So our journey begins, and I assure you at my working level, definitely I'll follow it up with actions also, sir. Before I go further, sir, just a brief point, because there was a question regarding MOU on cybersecurity between India and Korea. Sir, it was done in 2014. As Colonel earlier also mentioned the same thing, that it was between CERT India and CERT Korea, sir. And it was about future dialogue, exchange of information on cyber attacks, cyber security technology, and human resource exchange, sir. There has been progress in this particular field, sir. Certain mechanisms are already in place, and we are also signing few more specific agreement between armed forces and other fields also. So we are working on it, sir, and something is definitely due in coming months, sir. So we are working on it, sir. Now, coming back to the topic, sir, we all know, sir, cyber technology continues to evolve, so do the opportunities and challenges also. And both the speaker, or rather all four speakers, have spoken a lot about the challenges and opportunities. They are galore in environment, and we understand we are so vulnerable, sir. Yesterday, I was just going through internet, and I was reading through some material, and I came across with some interesting observation regarding cyber threats, sir. So I'll just share with you also. Firstly, most sophisticated cyber threat generally comes from intelligence or military services, sir, of foreign state. Secondly, more advanced you are, more vulnerable you would be for cyber espionage or other cyber aggression. Thirdly, the threat is likely to continue for unforeseeable future. And lastly, the complication related to cyber security lies with the difficulties in identification of sources and jurisdiction challenges, sir. And I think these observations are very close to the reality, and we must keep them in mind when we try to take a solution of it, sir. Again, there was another discussion going on in Seoul itself. In Seoul Defense Dialogue, I heard the same discussion where that discussion was being done at two strata, sir. Firstly, at diplomatic level, and secondly, at technical level, or we can say national level also, sir. At diplomatic level, sir, people were talking about cyber sovereignty, which is under a lot of discussion these days. And the concept which is being advocated by China and Russia, however, deemed unacceptable by most of the democracies. China calls for great firewall and data localization policies. Russia advocates domestication of internet, while democracies espouses internet, which is both global and open, where the state exerts minimum control over traffic passing through their borders. Still, few countries still turning towards some degree of sovereignty. So again, it remains a question, sir. Some degree means what, sir? How much cyber security is adequate, and how much is too much? So it's a question, but needs to be handled, sir. At national level, sir, again, I was going through a lot of material. I came across with an article written by Colonel Sanjeev Ralia himself. I think it was released a month ago, where he mentioned categorically the necessary ingredient of national cyber security policy, which includes legal framework, cyber response entity, and data protection. And if we further divide it into subcategories, we can reach up to entire structure of our cyber security, sir. We all understand that cyberspace has no boundary, and its security cannot be adequately addressed single-handedly by one nation or one entity. So international cooperation and regional cooperation is must in this case, sir. An entire community of nations understand this and progressive in collective response mechanism. Republic of Korea started its national cybersecurity strategy in 2019, sir, and it hinges on 6 pillars, including strengthening international cooperation. It is also pushing a comprehensive strategy to strengthen its national cyber security by 2022 to better cope with the emerging 5G-enabled hyper-connected world. As mentioned earlier, Indian cyber policy was unveiled in 2013, and its national cyber security strategy is likely to be effective by next year, I think 2022. Indian government is also stepping up its international cooperation to enhance its cyber security architecture. And just to count few of them, in October 20, I think it conducted ASEAN in India Track 1.5 dialogue on cyber security. It launched Center of Excellence for Software Development and Training in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. October 2020, it signed Memorandum of Cooperation with Japan. So we understand there exists a potential and there exists a inclination for cooperation, and top at all, we have a political will to cooperate, sir. So what do? I think we need to identify the area of cooperation so that we can chalk out a roadmap for further cooperation, sir. For that, I can suggest few methods which we shall be pursuing with your help, sir. Formal engagement between lead agencies of two nations, a joint task force which can identify potential area of cooperation between the two. We can start sharing information, we can start sharing assets. We can have exchange of experts and their expertise. We can exchange students, trainees, and trainers. So these are just few initial steps, though a step has already been taken. However, a long distance is yet to be scaled. But I'm confident that this kind of initiative will certainly fetch us desired end results. Sir. Once again, sir, I thank you all for the discussion and given us the lead to take it further ahead, sir. Thank you, sir. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you, Colonel Mishra, for your concluding remarks. With this, we come to this end of session 8. And soon, within a couple of minutes, we will begin the valedictory session for today. We just take a break for 5 minutes. I request all the participants to stay here, and we will soon resume with the valedictory session.